The sleek observation deck of Earth's Orbital Defense Station Alpha stretched before Admiral Park Jinwoo, its transparent walls offering an unobstructed view of Earth below and the approaching alien fleet above. The massive Imperial vessels, their hulls painted in garish gold that seemed to mock the subtle efficiency of human engineering, pushed through space with all the subtlety of peacocks strutting across a garden. Jinwoo kept his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face betraying no emotion as he watched the display of alien arrogance. Beside him, Defense Minister Kim Hae-yeon stood perfectly still, her military uniform crisp and immaculate. Her dark eyes tracked each Imperial ship's movement with the practiced ease of someone who had spent decades studying warfare. The station's dimmed the observation deck's smart glass slightly as the sun peeked around Earth's curve, preventing the glare from interfering with their view of the unfolding situation. The Imperial ships had arranged themselves in what they clearly thought was an intimidating formation, a half-circle of warships with their largest vessel in the center. Another message incoming from the Imperial flagship announced the station's AI, its voice calm and measured. They are becoming increasingly insistent on an immediate response. Put them through, Hae-yeon ordered, her voice carrying the quiet authority of her position. The air before them shimmered as a holographic display materialized, showing the alien ambassador. The being's scaled skin gleamed almost as brightly as their ships, decorated with what appeared to be ceremonial markings that crawled across its face like golden vines. "Your continued silence is most unseemly," the ambassador declared, its multiple eyes blinking in what Jinwoo recognized as their species' display of superiority. "The Eternal Empire extends its gracious offer of protection once again, though your behavior tests our patience." Jinwoo felt his lips twitch slightly as he caught Hae-yeon's subtle eye roll. They had both seen the Empire's diplomatic broadcasts to other species, the same condescending speech, the same practiced poses, the same assumption of inevitability. The Empire had been using this approach for so long they had forgotten it was meant to be an act. "Your primitive civilization will benefit greatly from Imperial guidance," the ambassador continued, its voice dripping with condescension. "Submit to the Empire's protection, and we shall elevate you from your technological infancy." Hae-yeon's neural interface flickered to life, its soft blue glow barely visible beneath her skin. Jinwoo watched as her fingers danced through the air, executing commands that would activate Earth's hidden defensive grid. Throughout the solar system, quantum-linked satellites and stealth platforms silently powered up, their existence still unknown to the Empire's scanning systems. The defense minister's movements were so subtle that the ambassador didn't notice them, too caught up in its own performance. "The Empire's generosity is legendary, but even we have limits to our patience. Your species shows promise. Your expansion through your solar system, while slow and primitive, demonstrates basic competence. Under our guidance, you might achieve proper faster-than-light travel within mere centuries." Jinwoo had to admire Hae-yeon's poker face. The quantum fold drives that powered humanity's real fleet made the Empire's FTL technology look like steam engines in comparison. But neither of them spoke to correct the ambassador's assumptions. Earth had spent too long carefully crafting its image as a promising but unthreatening civilization to break character now. "We will require your answer within one standard rotation," the Imperial ambassador concluded, making a gesture that its species probably thought was magnanimous. "Choose wisely." The hologram flickered out, leaving Jinwoo and Hae-yeon alone with their thoughts and the spectacular view. Below them, Earth continued its eternal dance around the sun, its oceans and continents partially hidden behind swirls of white clouds. It looked peaceful, vulnerable even, exactly as they wanted it to appear. "All defensive systems are now at full readiness," Hae-yeon reported quietly, her neural interface dimming as she completed the activation sequence. "The quantum grid is operational but remaining in passive mode. They still haven't detected anything unusual." Jinwoo nodded, allowing himself a small smile as he watched the Imperial ships maintain their threatening formation. How long do you think it will take them to realize their mistake? Based on their psychological profiles. He-Yun's lips curved in a rare smile. They're so convinced of their superiority that they'll probably need us to demonstrate it rather dramatically before they understand. The Admiral turned away from the window, his expression growing serious. Then we should prepare to give them exactly the demonstration they need. Signal the fleet. Tell them to maintain quantum silence, but be ready to emerge on my command. As they left the observation deck, Jinwu took one last look at the golden Imperial ships gleaming in the sunlight. They were about to learn a lesson that humanity had mastered long ago. True power rarely needed to advertise itself, and appearances could be deceiving indeed. The Empire had given humanity one rotation to choose wisely. They had no idea that humanity had made its choice centuries ago, preparing patiently for exactly this moment. As Jinwu and He-Yun walked toward the command center, their footsteps echoing in the station's corridors, Earth's hidden defenses continued their silent watch, waiting for the order that would reveal humanity's true face to the galaxy. The Grand Council chamber of the Imperial flagship glowed with soft golden light, reflecting off the polished surfaces that seemed to be the Empire's favorite decoration. General Su Jinho stood before the assembled War Council, his decorated uniform catching the light, as he gestured to the holographic display of Earth's solar system floating in the center of the room. As you can see, Jinho explained, his voice carrying the absolute certainty that had become his trademark. The humans have managed to establish a presence throughout their system using incredibly basic technology. He zoomed in on an Earth cargo ship making its way to Mars, its fusion drive leaving a clear energy signature. Their ships are primitive, relying on nuclear fusion for propulsion, with hull designs that waste energy in space. The members of the War Council nodded in agreement, their expressions showing a mixture of amusement and disdain. Admiral Li Daesung, whose combat record included the subjugation of 12 different species, leaned forward in his ornate chair to study the display more closely. Their weapon systems are equally unimpressive, Jinho continued, bringing up scans of Earth's visible defensive installations, basic kinetic weapons, nuclear warheads, and early-stage energy weapons. Their shields, when present at all, use outdated electromagnetic technology that our weapons will bypass with ease. One of the younger council members raised a hand. What about their colonies? Our initial reports mentioned settlements on Mars and Venus. Jinho allowed himself a small smile. Yes, they've managed to establish dome cities on Mars and floating habitats in Venus's upper atmosphere. Impressive for their technological level, but still extremely vulnerable. Their life support systems are basic, and their defenses are minimal. Admiral Li Daesung stood up, his movements carrying the confident grace of someone used to victory. Based on these findings, I recommend an immediate military operation. A standard subjugation fleet should be more than sufficient. He pointed to various points in the solar system. We can neutralize their orbital defenses here, and here. Their colonies will surrender as soon as they realize they're cut off from Earth. Their ships are slow and bulky, Jinho added, supporting the Admiral's assessment. Even if they attempt to resist, our superior drives will let us outmaneuver them easily. They won't be able to coordinate an effective defense. Unknown to the confident Imperial leaders, their every word was being monitored. Deep within Luna Base, in a room that didn't officially exist, Commander Kang Mei sat in her quantum-linked command center, watching the Empire plan their attack through surveillance systems they couldn't detect. Her lips curved in a slight smile as she listened to their dismissive assessment of Earth's capabilities. The quantum surveillance network had been one of humanity's greatest achievements. Microscopic devices that could transmit information instantly across any distance, completely undetectable to Imperial technology. Earth had spent decades seeding these devices throughout Imperial space, building a complete picture of their supposed superiors. Mei watched as Admiral Li Daesung laid out his attack plan, noting how it relied entirely on assumptions about humanity's technological limitations. Her neural interface hummed quietly as it processed the tactical data, comparing the Empire's plan to the dozens of scenarios Earth's AI systems had predicted. "They will strike within 3 days," Li Daesung declared to the War Council. "We expect minimal casualties on our side. These humans show potential, but they need to learn their place in the galaxy." Mai Rei's fingers danced across her holographic interface as she composed a message to Earth Command. The Empire's confidence was exactly what they had spent years cultivating. The careful presentation of Earth as a promising but unthreatening civilization had worked perfectly. "Their colonies on Mars and Venus appear equally primitive," Li Daesung was saying, pointing to the human settlements. "We estimate total subjugation will take less than a week. Their technology level suggests they'd never even conceived of proper quantum mechanics, let alone military applications of it." Mai Rei had to suppress a laugh at that. The quantum fold drives that powered humanity's real fleet, hidden safely out of phase with normal spacetime, made the Empire's fastest ships look like they were standing still. The massive shipyards buried inside Mercury, the antimatter production facilities in Jupiter's atmosphere, the eye-controlled defense grid that permeated the entire solar system, all invisible to Imperial sensors. She sent her message to Earth Command, knowing it would arrive instantly through the quantum network. They took the bait. The response came back just as quickly. "Maintain surveillance. Let them commit to their attack plan. Everything proceeds as expected." Mai Rei leaned back in her chair, still monitoring the War Council's meeting. They were now discussing how to divide Earth's resources once they had conquered the planet, arguing over which imperial houses would get control of which regions. The Empire had spent so long being the most advanced civilization in their known space that they had forgotten a fundamental truth. Appearance and reality were often very different things. They saw what they expected to see: a young species taking its first steps into space, using technology that the Empire had mastered centuries ago. They never stopped to ask why humanity had chosen to be so visible with such primitive technology. They never wondered what might be hiding behind that carefully constructed facade. Their conviction in their own superiority had become their greatest weakness, and humanity had spent decades making sure that weakness would be fatal. As the War Council meeting concluded, Mai Rei began preparing the detailed reports that would help Earth's forces tear the Imperial fleet apart. The Empire thought they were about to teach humanity a lesson about its place in the galaxy. They didn't realize they were the ones about to be educated. Captain Song Jaiwon stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Golden Dawn, his attention fixed on the sensor displays that monitored the space around Earth's solar system. The attack was proceeding exactly as planned. Their fleet had taken position in a perfect assault formation, ready to begin their swift conquest of humanity's primitive civilization. The first warning came as a subtle fluctuation in the quantum field sensors, a technology the Empire was certain humans couldn't possibly understand, let alone manipulate. Ji-1 frowned at the readings, tapping the display with one finger. "Engineering, run a diagnostic on the quantum sensors," he ordered. "We're getting some strange readings that must be a malfunction." He turned to his second in command. "Probably interference from their crude fusion drives." The diagnostic never had a chance to begin. 3 seconds later, space itself seemed to tear open around the Imperial fleet. Where there had been empty void moments before, hundreds of sleek, dark ships materialized simultaneously. Their designs were unlike anything in Imperial records, smooth, predatory shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Jaiwon's mouth fell open as his sensor displays exploded with information. The human vessels were everywhere, their formation perfect, their positioning cutting off every possible escape route. His tactical computer tried to track their movements and failed. The ships seemed to flicker in and out of normal space, their drives operating on principles that defied Imperial understanding. "Battle stations," he shouted, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew it was too late. The human ships had appeared so close that traditional combat ranges were meaningless. They had bypassed every early warning system, every defense perimeter, every carefully planned security measure. The main communication system came alive with a voice that carried absolute authority. Fleet Admiral Yun Ta-Hyun's words echoed through every ship in the Imperial fleet. You were warned. Remember that. Ji-1 watched in horror as his sensors tried and failed to get clear readings on the human vessels. Their quantum fold drives bent space in ways that made tracking them impossible. They seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, their movements defying the laws of physics as the Empire understood them. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, panic evident in his voice. "They're ships. They're not using crews." The energy signatures suggest advanced AI cores, operating at speeds no organic pilot could match. The human fleet moved with impossible coordination, each ship acting in perfect harmony with the others. There was no lag time between commands, no delay in responses, just the terrifying precision of artificial intelligences operating at the speed of thought. "Launch fighters," Ji-1 ordered, clinging to his training despite the growing realization that they were hopelessly outmatched. The Imperial fighter bays opened, releasing swarms of their best combat craft. The human response demonstrated just how futile that action was. Small, dart-like vessels emerged from their larger ships, moving so quickly that they appeared as mere streaks on the Imperial sensors. These weren't fighters in any traditional sense. They were AI-controlled interceptors, their reactions limited only by the laws of physics themselves. "Sir, we're detecting energy buildups in the human vessels," the weapons officer reported, his voice shaking. "But the signatures don't match anything in our database. They're using technology we've never seen before." Ji-1 watched as strange, shadowy fields began to form around the human ships. Their vessels seemed to fade slightly, as if they were partially phasing out of reality itself. The Empire's most advanced sensors, capable of detecting the smallest space debris at extreme ranges, couldn't maintain a solid lock on them. "All ships, open fire," he commanded, knowing it was their only option. The Imperial fleet unleashed its full arsenal, filling space with energy beams and plasma torpedoes. The human vessels didn't even attempt to evade. The Imperial weapons simply passed through them as if they weren't there, their quantum-shifted state making them virtually intangible to conventional attacks. "Impossible," Ji-1 whispered, watching as his best weapons had no effect. "They can't have this level of technology. They were supposed to be primitives." Fleet Admiral Yun's voice came through again, and this time there was a note of almost paternal disappointment in it. "Your empire has grown complacent, relying on technology you inherited rather than truly understood. We hid our true capabilities not out of weakness, but because we were studying you, learning your limitations, preparing." The human fleet began to move, their formation shifting like liquid metal, flowing into new positions that Ji-1's tactical training told him should be impossible to coordinate. Their ships seemed to dance through space, ignoring the basic principles of momentum and inertia that had governed space combat for millennia. "Send word to Imperial Command," Ji-1 ordered, his voice hollow. "The humans. They're not what we thought. They're not primitive at all. There." He trailed off, watching as the dark human ships surrounded his fleet, their quantum fold drives bending reality itself to their will. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had seen what humanity wanted them to see, a young species taking its first steps into space. They had never imagined that those primitive fusion drives and bulky ships were simply a facade, hiding a civilization that had mastered technologies the Empire couldn't even comprehend. As Ji-1 stared at the sensor displays, watching his fleet being systematically enclosed by vessels that defied his understanding of physics, he realized that this wasn't going to be a conquest. It was going to be a lesson, one that the Empire would never forget. The Empire's fleet hung in space like a wall of golden daggers, 300 ships arranged in perfect attack formation. Their energy signatures blazed across the void, a deliberate show of power meant to intimidate their opponents. On their bridges, Imperial commanders exchanged confident smiles, certain of their coming victory. Commander Choi Minji sat in her command chair aboard the TFS Indomitable, her neural interface humming softly as it connected her directly to her ship's AI core. The sleek vessel, painted in light-absorbing dark materials, waited in quantum-shifted space along with the rest of Earth's true fleet. Through her neural link, she could feel her ship's eagerness for battle, its advanced AI ready to execute maneuvers that would have been impossible for human reflexes alone. Imperial fleet is launching their first strike, her tactical officer reported calmly. They're using standard attack patterns, exactly as our simulations predicted. Minji nodded, watching through multiple layers of sensors as the Imperial ships began their advance. Their weapons charge, their shields glowing with power that they believed made them invincible. They had no idea that humanity had decoded and countered their shield technology decades ago. All ships, execute Battle Plan Theta, she commanded. Her orders flowed through quantum channels, reaching every ship in her battle group instantly. Remember your training. Show them why humanity has spent centuries preparing for this moment. The Indomitable and its sister ships shifted fully into normal space, their quantum fold drives allowing them to appear exactly where they wanted with microscopic precision. The Imperial fleet's sensors barely had time to register their presence before the first antimatter torpedoes were launched. The torpedoes, containing carefully contained packets of antimatter suspended in quantum fields, phased directly through the Imperial shields as if they weren't there. The Empire's defensive technology, designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles, had no way to handle weapons that could partially exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Minji watched through her neural interface as the first torpedoes struck their targets. The explosions were beautiful in their destructiveness, perfect spheres of annihilation, as matter met antimatter in controlled reactions. Imperial ships, their golden hulls now scared and broken, began to drift out of formation. Enemy fleet is responding, her tactical officer reported. They're launching fighters and switching to their heavy weapon systems. The space between the fleets lit up with Imperial energy weapons, beams of concentrated plasma and exotic particles that could have vaporized entire cities. But humanity had long since mastered the art of quantum-locked barriers. The Indomitable's defenses absorbed the enemy fire without strain, converting the energy into power for their own systems. Launch interceptors, Minji ordered, feeling her ship's AI coordinate with the drone fighters as they deployed. The small, AI-controlled craft moved with impossible speed and precision, dancing between Imperial weapons fire to strike at vulnerable points that only quantum sensors could detect. In his command center orbiting Earth, Admiral Park Jin-woo watched the battle unfold through quantum surveillance feeds. The Empire's overwhelming force was being systematically torn apart by weapons and defenses they couldn't understand, let alone counter. Their formations, perfect by Imperial standards, fell apart under the assault of ships that could outmaneuver them in ways they had thought impossible. "Sir," his aide reported, "Commander Choi's battle group has destroyed or disabled 40% of the enemy fleet. The rest are attempting to retreat, but our quantum fold drives are preventing them from entering FTL." Jin-woo finally allowed himself a small smile. The Empire was learning what humanity had known for centuries. True military power wasn't about the size of your fleet or the strength of your weapons. It was about innovation, adaptation, and the wisdom to hide your true capabilities until the perfect moment. Back on the Indomitable, Minji directed her ships in what was becoming less of a battle and more of a cleanup operation. Imperial vessels, their supposedly impenetrable shields useless against human weapons, were either surrendering or being reduced to scattered debris. Enemy flagship is attempting to broadcast a surrender signal, her communications officer announced. Their quantum communications are scrambled, but they're using basic radio transmissions. Minji nodded, feeling a touch of sympathy for the Imperial commanders who had been so confident just minutes ago. Acknowledge their surrender. Inform them that any ship powering up weapons will be immediately destroyed. The battle had lasted less than 15 minutes. The Empire's first attack wave, which they had believed would easily subjugate Earth, had instead become an object lesson in the dangers of underestimating one's opponents. Their golden ships, now broken and drifting, served as a stark reminder that appearances could be deceiving. As Minji coordinated with other fleet commanders to secure the battlefield and begin collecting prisoners, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment, developing technologies in secret while presenting a facade of primitive development to the galaxy. The Empire had expected to find an easy conquest. Instead, they had discovered that the species they had dismissed as primitives had surpassed them in ways they couldn't even comprehend. Their overwhelming force had been overwhelmed, their superior technology had proven inferior, and their confidence had been shattered along with their fleet. Admiral Jinwu's smile remained as he watched the final Imperial ships power down their systems in surrender. The first engagement was over, but this was just the beginning. The Empire was about to learn exactly why humanity had chosen to hide its true power for so long. Deep in Imperial space, Captain Kim Do-Yun stood on the bridge of the TFS Shadowblade, her hybrid AI neural interface pulsing with data as it coordinated the movements of Earth's counter-attack fleet. Through her enhanced consciousness, she could feel every ship in her command moving with perfect synchronization, their quantum-fold drives bending space around them as they approached their first target. The Empire's primary defense station loomed ahead, a massive structure of gold and silver that had guarded their core worlds for millennia. Its weapons bristled from every surface, its shields glowing with enough power to withstand conventional fleets. The Empire had called it the Eternal Fortress, believing it to be unconquerable. Their defense grid is active, Lieutenant Ba Jihu reported from her cybernetics station, her own neural interfaces connecting directly with the station's systems. But these firewalls... She paused, a small smile playing across her face. They haven't updated their core systems in over 3 centuries. The algorithms are completely predictable. Do-Yun felt the information flow through her neural link, detailed schematics of the station's defenses, its power distribution, its weak points. The Empire had grown so confident in their technological superiority that they had stopped innovating, stopped improving. They had been masters of the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten how to adapt. Begin the attack sequence, Do-Yun commanded, her orders flowing instantly to every ship through quantum channels. Execute pattern Delta 7. The Earth fleet moved like a single organism, each ship knowing its exact role. Their dark hulls seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars as they shifted partially out of normal space, becoming harder for Imperial sensors to track. The station's defenses activated, filling space with energy beams and plasma torpedoes. But the human ships weren't where the Imperial targeting systems thought they were. Their quantum-fold drives allowed them to exist partially in multiple locations, making conventional targeting impossible. Their shields are operating at maximum power, Jihu reported, her fingers dancing through holographic displays as her cybernetics processed the data. But they're still using basic energy barrier technology. They have no defense against quantum-phased weapons. Do-Yun nodded, feeling the Shadowblade's weapon systems come fully online through her neural interface. Launch strike packages. Target their primary power nodes. The human fleet released swarms of small dark objects that the Imperial sensors barely registered. These were the product of centuries of secret development, quantum-phased antimatter warheads, guided by AI systems that could think faster than organic brains. The warheads passed through the station's shields as if they weren't there, their quantum states allowing them to ignore barriers designed to stop normal matter and energy. They detonated inside the station's hull, creating perfect spheres of annihilation as matter met antimatter. Inside the Eternal Fortress, Imperial commanders watched in horror as their supposedly impregnable defenses proved useless. Their sensors couldn't track the human ships properly, their weapons couldn't hit targets that seemed to exist in multiple places at once, and their shields might as well have been paper against the advanced weapons Earth had brought to bear. "Second wave, begin your approach," Du Yun ordered, watching through multiple sensor feeds as the station's outer sections began to break apart. "Lieutenant Ba, start data extraction from their core systems." Jehu's cybernetic systems reached out through quantum channels, bypassing centuries-old security measures with ease. "Their entire defense network runs on predictable algorithms," she reported, amusement clear in her voice. "I'm downloading their complete military database now. They never imagined someone could breach their systems this easily." The Empire's leadership, watching from their capital world, saw their greatest defense station torn apart by weapons they couldn't understand, used by ships they couldn't track properly, coordinated by systems that made their best technology look primitive. Du Yun felt a touch of sympathy as she watched the station's crew begin emergency evacuations. The Empire had believed their technology made them invincible, never realizing that their stagnation had made them vulnerable. While they had rested on their achievements, humanity had continued to innovate, to develop, to prepare. "Station's power core is going critical," Jehu announced. "All data extraction complete. We have their entire military network mapped now." "Signal the fleet to move to safe distance," Du Yun ordered. "Prepare for Phase 2 of the operation." The human ships shifted smoothly into quantum space just as the Eternal Fortress exploded, its destruction marking the beginning of Earth's systematic dismantling of the Empire's power structure. Through her neural interface, Du Yun could already see the next targets. More defense stations, shipyards, command centers, all running on the same outdated systems. The Empire had spent millennia building their power structure, believing it to be unassailable. Now they watched helplessly as humanity's forces took it apart piece by piece, using technology that made their greatest achievements look like children's toys. As the Shadow Blade led its fleet toward their next target, Du Yun allowed herself a moment of reflection. The Empire had dismissed humanity as primitives, never wondering why a species capable of colonizing their solar system would use such seemingly basic technology. They were about to learn that appearances could be deceiving, and that underestimating one's opponents was the greatest mistake any civilization could make. Through quantum surveillance networks, she could see the panic spreading through Imperial command centers. Their carefully constructed world was falling apart, and there was nothing their ancient technology could do to stop it. The counter-strike had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Imperial Senate chamber echoed with shouting as panic spread through the gathered leaders. The massive Golden Hall, once a symbol of the Empire's eternal power, now felt like a trap as reports of defeat after defeat flooded in through their communication networks. Imperial Senator Rose Sung-ho stood at the central podium, his ornate robes trembling with rage as he faced the military high command. Holographic displays around him showed the destruction of their fleets, their defense stations falling one by one to weapons that seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. "How is this possible?" Sung-ho's voice cracked with fury and fear. "They were supposed to be primitives. You told us they were barely capable of interplanetary travel." The military commanders shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Admiral Park, who had once boasted about how easily they would conquer Earth, couldn't meet the senator's eyes. The holographic displays showed another defense station exploding, its ancient shields useless against Earth's quantum phase weapons. Meanwhile, in Earth's strategic command buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Director Nam Haijin watched the Empire's political collapse through quantum surveillance networks. The advanced monitoring systems showed her everything. Every panicked meeting, every failed defensive measure, every desperate attempt to understand what was happening. "Their entire civilization is built on borrowed technology," Haijin observed to her staff, watching the Empire's leaders scramble for solutions. "They've been using the same systems for so long that they've forgotten how to innovate. They don't even understand how most of their own technology works anymore." The quantum feeds showed her multiple views of the Imperial capital world. Once proud warships hung in orbit, their crews too terrified to engage the human forces that systematically dismantled their defensive networks. The Empire's best scientists worked frantically to understand Earth's weapons, but they were centuries behind in their understanding of quantum mechanics. Another diplomatic transmission incoming, her communications officer reported. They're offering complete surrender of their outer territories in exchange for peace talks. Hai-Jin watched as Imperial Senator Ro Sung-ho's face appeared on the main screen, his earlier rage replaced by barely concealed desperation. "Surely we can reach some arrangement," he pleaded. "The Empire has vast resources, technologies you might find useful." "Senator," Hai-Jin replied calmly, "your Empire's technology is centuries behind ours. Those resources you offer, we can synthesize or replicate anything we need. The knowledge you think might interest us, we deciphered it all decades ago through quantum surveillance." The senator's face paled as he realized the full extent of his civilization's vulnerability. But your ships, your colonies, we saw them using basic fusion drives, primitive shielding. You saw what we wanted you to see," Hai-Jin explained, almost feeling sorry for him. "While your empire grew complacent, humanity prepared. We studied you, learned your weaknesses, and developed technologies you can't even comprehend. Those primitive ships were a facade, designed to keep you overconfident." Back in the Senate chamber, Sung-ho collapsed into his chair as more reports of defeats poured in. The Empire's best remaining ships, sent to protect their core worlds, had been torn apart by human vessels that seemed to ignore the basic laws of space combat. Their most sophisticated computer systems were being bypassed by Earth's AI and cyber warfare suites, as if they were children's toys. "We have to do something," another senator shouted. "Can't we at least understand how they're beating us?" The chief Imperial scientist stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Their technology, it operates on principles we barely understand. Their ships can partially exist in multiple quantum states. Their weapons phase through our strongest shields. Their computer systems think faster than organic brains. We're not just behind them technologically. We're dealing with a civilization that has surpassed us in ways we can't even measure." In strategic command, Hai-Jin watched the Empire's leadership fracture as different factions argued over how to respond. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others insisted on fighting to the last ship. A few suggested trying to buy time by pretending to negotiate, while secretly preparing their remaining forces. "They still don't understand," she murmured, watching their desperate debates through quantum surveillance. "This isn't a war they can win through traditional means. We're not just defeating their military. We're showing them that their entire civilization is built on a foundation of stagnation." The Empire's attempts at negotiation grew increasingly frantic as Earth's forces methodically approached their core worlds. Each offer was more desperate than the last. Territories, resources, technology, political concessions, but they were offering things that humanity had surpassed centuries ago, trying to bargain with a civilization that had already moved far beyond their understanding. As another day of panic and defeat drew to a close, Imperial Senator Ro Sung-ho stood alone in his office, watching the distant flashes of light that marked the destruction of another defense station. The empire that had stood for millennia was crumbling, not through force alone, but through the revelation that they had become a civilization of caretakers, maintaining technology they no longer truly understood. In Earth's strategic command, Director Nam Hai-Jin prepared for the final phase of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. The Empire's panic had proven what Earth's leaders had long suspected. True power wasn't about maintaining what you had, but about continuing to grow, to learn, and to innovate. The galaxy was about to enter a new era, whether the Empire was ready or not. The Imperial capital world hung in space like a jewel, its golden cities glinting in the light of its twin suns. Above it, the TSS Starweaver's dark hull seemed to absorb the starlight, its quantum-shifted state making it appear almost ghost-like against the backdrop of space. Fleet Admiral Yun Ta-hyun stood on the bridge, watching as the Imperial delegation approached in their ornate shuttle. The vessel's golden hull, once a symbol of supreme power, now seemed gaudy and obsolete compared to the clean, efficient lines of Earth's ships. "They're ready to board," his AI reported. Quantum scans confirm they're carrying no weapons or hidden devices. Tai-Hyun nodded, feeling the familiar hum of his neural interface as it processed the situation. The Starweaver could have destroyed the entire capital world with a single salvo of its quantum weapons. Instead, it would become the site of a new beginning. The Imperial leaders entered the bridge, their once proud postures now humble. The Empire's High Chancellor, stripped of his usual ceremonial armor, bowed deeply before the human admiral. "We formally surrender," the Chancellor announced, his voice steady despite the circumstance. "The Empire submits to Earth's authority and begs mercy for our people." Tai-Hyun stepped forward, holding a quantum tablet that contained the peace terms. "Earth has no interest in dominating your civilization," he said softly. "Our terms are simple. End your expansionist aggression, accept technological and educational assistance, and join us in building a better galaxy." Across the former Empire's territory, Commander Kang Mi-Ray led teams of human engineers and scientists in upgrading Imperial infrastructure. In the capital city's main research center, she watched as Imperial scientists marveled at even the basic principles of quantum mechanics that humanity had mastered centuries ago. "Your civilization hasn't truly innovated in over 300 years," Mi-Ray explained to a group of wide-eyed Imperial engineers. "You've been maintaining technology you inherited without understanding its fundamental principles. We're here to change that." The integration process revealed just how far the Empire had fallen behind. Their fastest computers ran on principles humanity had abandoned as inefficient generations ago. Their most advanced energy systems wasted power in ways that made human engineers wince. Their medical technology seemed primitive compared to Earth's quantum-based healing systems. But what surprised the Imperial citizens most was humanity's approach to victory. There were no occupying armies, no harsh reparations, no humiliating demands. Instead, Earth sent teachers, engineers, and scientists, all focused on helping the former empire understand the technologies they had been using blindly for centuries. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Park Jin-woo stood at the same observation deck where he had watched the Empire's first approach what felt like a lifetime ago. Now he watched as ships from both civilizations moved together through space, human vessels teaching Imperial crews the principles of quantum navigation. "They're learning quickly," his aide reported. "Their scientists are especially eager to understand how our quantum fold drives work. They've already started implementing some of our basic AI systems." Jin-woo smiled, remembering the Empire's initial dismissal of humanity as primitives. Their victory had come not from overwhelming force, but from patience, preparation, and the wisdom to hide their true capabilities until the perfect moment. The process of integration continued across the former empire. Earth's quantum surveillance networks, once used to spy on Imperial activities, now helped coordinate the massive technological upgrade of their civilization. Imperial citizens discovered that the humans they had dismissed as backwards were actually centuries ahead in their understanding of physics, computing, and energy manipulation. Fleet Admiral Yoon Ta-Hyun's decision to offer mercy rather than dominance proved transformative. The former empire's worlds began to flourish as they adopted human technologies and principles. Their stagnant civilization, frozen in time by their own arrogance, started to remember how to innovate and grow again. Commander Kang Mi-Ray found unexpected joy in teaching Imperial scientists, watching their eyes light up as they grasped concepts their civilization had forgotten centuries ago. The same quantum mechanics that had allowed humanity to defeat them now offered a path to their redemption. As the months passed, the golden ships of the former empire began to incorporate human designs, their hulls darkening to absorb rather than reflect energy. Their cities learned to use quantum power sources, their computers began to approach human standards, and their people started to look toward the future rather than the past. Standing at his familiar observation deck, Admiral Park Jin-woo felt pride not in humanity's victory, but in what they had done with it. They had proven themselves superior not just in war, but in peace, teaching rather than subjugating, building rather than destroying. The galaxy was entering a new era, one where progress would come not from conquest, but from cooperation. Humanity had shown that true power lay not in maintaining ancient glories, but in constantly striving to improve, to innovate, and to grow. And as Earth's ships guided their former enemies into this new age of peace and discovery, Jinwu knew that they had achieved something far greater than military victory. They had shown that the strongest civilizations were not those that dominated others, but those that helped others rise to their full potential.